You're watching a Reality Check exclusive. Tonight, the law is hopelessly arbitrary, prone to abuse. It will require a miracle to uphold its constitutional validity. It strikes at the root of the right to life. It violates fundamental rights. It is capable of great public mischief. These are just some instances of what four senior former judges, speaking exclusively to NDTV, told us what they think of the laws being proposed against so-called love jihad, the bogus theory that Muslim men are illegally converting and marrying Hindu women. The strong criticism of the judges was of the Uttar Pradesh ordinance, ostensibly against forcible conversion, but which has already come in for strong criticism for how it's being used to criminalize Hindu-Muslim couples. The ordinance likely to be used as a template by other BJP states to bring in similar laws. Now, there are already several legal challenges to the UP ordinance before the courts. Today, in response to one of those challenges, the Allahabad High Court has issued notice to the UP government on the ordinance. But these ex-judges speaking to us are clear that the courts should strike down the law. Let's begin with Judge A.P. Shah, former Chief Justice of Delhi High Court and former Chairman of the National Law Commission, who I spoke to earlier. Let me just start by asking you the direct question. You've gone through the ordinance. Does this pass the legal constitutional test, or is this in fact quite the opposite?
The Uttar Pradesh Prohibition of Unlawful Conversion of Religion Ordinance 2020 is promulgated, as you said, to combat the perceived threat of love jihad, a term commonly used by the Hindu conservative leadership to describe interfaith relationships and marriages.
Right.
The ordinance makes it a criminal offense for a person to convert another by coercion, misrepresentation, fraud, etc. There is nothing objectionable in that itself.
Right.
But several provisions of the ordinance seriously violate the freedom of conscience and the fundamental right to practice religion guaranteed by Article 25 and strikes at the very root of right to life and liberty guaranteed by Article 21.
So it violates.
Ordinarily,
yes.
No, I just am taking you, showing you some provisions.
Yes.
In any criminal case, conversion is presumed to be illegal. Here it is conversion is presumed to be illegal. The burden of proof is normally on the prosecution. In this ordinance, it says that every religious conversion must be presumed to be illegal. The burden of proof lies on the person accused of illegal conversion to prove that it is not illegal.
Right.
So there is a presumption of guilt. The offense is cognizable, it is not bailable, so the police can arrest anyone. The ordinance requires a person intending to convert to another religion to go to a district magistrate who conducts an inquiry. If the conversion is for an allurement, then it is illegal. The term allurement is defined in a very broad way. Even a simple wedding gift like a wristwatch, a bangle, or a ring would amount to an allurement. Interestingly, Srinivas, the reconversion is not illegal.
That's right.
Even if it is caused by fraud or force. So if a person is converted voluntarily, then he might be arrested. But if he is forced to reconvert, then there is no criminal offense.
Right.
Sentencing is most problematic.
Right.
It's 1 to 5 years is the normal sentence. This is the ordinary term.
Yes.
But if the victim is minor or a woman or a member of scheduled caste or tribe, the term goes up to 10 years. So even if the woman is a professor, say a very educated woman, she's converted, the sentence is 10 years. And if you convert an illiterate male person, the sentence is 5 years.
Okay.
Finally, an aggrieved person can lodge a complaint against anyone, including parents, siblings, all sorts of persons can be brought under the net.
Right.
In my view, this law is capable of great public mischief. And it is difficult to believe that such a law could be passed by the government in a country that is governed by rule of law and constitution.
Okay, that's very strong. That's very strong from you. You're saying that this law is striking at the root of the Constitution and that this is essentially violating the Constitution in letter and spirit. But the fact is, Mr. Justice Shah, that these laws, these anti-conversion laws are actually not new. As you know, they've been there for some time, but this is the first time I believe that they're attempting to criminalize marriage itself. That the very act of marriage is being criminalized. If you convert.
No, this was not really, the marriage was not criminalized, though there were laws against conversion or the forcible conversion. See, this, a version of this was floated in a century-old book written by Mr. UN Mukherjee. The Hindu Mahasabha tried to gather support around the idea that Muslim men are waging jihad in India through love marriages. The Love Jihad campaign claims that Muslim men use love, seduction and trickery to convert Hindu women and Christian women to Islam. I mean, the women are warned that they're about the unsuitable outsiders, particularly those who are outside the religion or of a lower caste. They should remain pure. I mean, they are told that they should remain pure, that they might be to fit the role of mothers of nation. Srinivasan, this Khap Panchayat also follow a similar philosophy. The objective is essentially to subjugate women. A Khap leader even went on so far to infamously say that only Boers choose their partners. In reality, I must tell you that this is all wrong. There were NIA inquiries carried out in cases of in Karnataka and Kerala. For example, in Hadia's case, all allegations of love jihad, that Muslim men are waging jihad through love marriages, have been proven to be wrong. Actually, interfaith marriages are still a rarity. Over 90% of marriages in India are still arranged marriages and approved by families and involve persons of the same faith or religion. Very few marriages are intercaste marriages. I mean, the percentage of intercaste is 5% as per the survey. And interfaith is still less. It is 2 to 3%. So just see, for decades in India, we advocate interstate marriages, intercaste and interfaith marriages to achieve communal harmony. Ambedkar was a big votary of this and recorded this emphatically in his book, Annihilation of Caste. I will just give you my personal experience. A college friend of mine, a Muslim college friend, decided to marry a Hindu girl from a rich family, an influential family, which made all efforts to thwart the relationship, including bringing in police, etc. The matter eventually went to the Bombay High Court. There, Justice G.N. Vaidya, one of the very distinguished judges of Bombay High Court, he quashed all charges of kidnapping and other things. But in the open court, in a very emotional moment, the judge gave his blessings to the couple. I will never forget that moment. I was present in the court. And I must tell you that my marriage is interfaith. One of my children's marriage is interfaith. I believe that such relationships should be celebrated. Instead, we are criminalizing them.
Okay, not just criminalizing, they're also communalizing them. But now tell me, the most important question, that this, as I mentioned, this ordinance has been challenged already. There are multiple challenges against it, and that is likely to continue as more and more such laws are passed. What is, in your view, the judicial position to take on this? What should the judiciary ought to be doing?
I agree with you that because the ordinance has already taken its toll. There are large scale of arrest of people every day. One reads about the stories of suppression. So it is clear that the ordinance must be struck down immediately and certainly not permitted to enacted into a statute.
Struck down immediately.
We need to stop this destruction of freedoms guaranteed by the Constitution. This can be done only by the judiciary. And I tell you, in a recent judgment, a division bench of the Allahabad High Court in Uttar Pradesh held that marriage is a matter of choice. And every adult woman has a fundamental right to choose her partner. Even if such a decision encourages other important decisions, including the choice of the change of religion or choice of religions, state cannot intervene. It overruled its earlier judgment of a single judge holding that the conversion to Islam was valid only when it was predicated on a change of heart or an honest conviction. In fact, this very ordinance is follows the lines taken by the single judge, which is no longer valid law. Now you may also, I may draw your attention to Hadira's case where the Supreme Court said
Yes.
that the Kerala High Court had transgressed on Hadira's constitutional rights
Yes.
by questioning her right to marry. In that case, the Hadira married a Muslim gentleman. She is a Hindu girl,
Yes.
and she's a teacher.
Yes.
And the High Court said that it's a marriage is sham.
Yes.
My worry is this: Hadira is an individual case. My fear is that the Supreme Court may not be as proactive when it comes to the larger question of constitutionality of the ordinance.
Right.
They might end up just sitting on the issue when it comes before the court. They have done it in other cases, and this might,
This is
my
a
fear
worry.
is this might happen again. So I believe that this should be, the court should take it up immediately.
Right.
I believe that the petitions have been filed before the High Court and the Supreme Court.
Sure.
I hope that the courts intervene
Okay. Well,
strongly.
you've been very
Yes, yes.
okay. You've been very clear there. You're saying that this ordinance should be struck down straight away, not permitted to carry on. But you do voice this concern, and it's a legitimate concern, that in the individual case like Hadira and others, the courts have been taking a progressive view, saying you must permit interfaith relationships. It is the right to freedom of choice. But the constitutional aspect that this ordinance brings up, you feel the Supreme Court may not be as decisive and they may sit on it. That is a matter of concern. But it's great to have you, Justice Shah, and to hear you clearly and unequivocally call out this ordinance for what it is. Let's see, Justice Shah, let's see how the courts respond. But thank you so much indeed for coming on, Justice Shah, and to get your views as clearly as always. Thanks very much indeed, sir.
Thank you, Srinivasan.
All right, Justice A.P. Shah there. Also Justice Madan Lokur, we contacted, ex-judge of the Supreme Court. He sent us his detailed view on why this law, the UP ordinance, fails the legal and constitutional test. This is what he told us. He said firstly that he's not supporting forcible or fraudulent conversions. He's against that. But he's against penalizing voluntary conversions. He says the UP law is hopelessly arbitrary and prone to abuse. He says the law is against the freedom of choice and privacy, against the freedom to practice any religion, against dignity. He said it's one of the strangest legislations that I've ever seen, and that it will require a miracle to uphold its constitutional validity. He also point by point explained why the specific clauses of the law lead him to this conclusion. For instance, the law says that marriage done for the sole purpose of unlawful conversion shall be cancelled. Lokur says, how can a marriage be performed for an unlawful conversion? I can understand an unlawful conversion for marriage, but not the other way around. And he says conversion even after marriage makes the conversion void. So if a married woman converts herself to another religion, the marriage becomes void. And the children of the otherwise happily married couple become illegitimate straight away. The law places the burden of proof on the person who caused the conversion. Lokur says, how can they prove anything? They aren't judges. The law says that a declaration has to be sent to the district magistrate after conversion, which the DM will put up on a notice board. Lokur asks, what is the purpose of a notice after conversion? If an IPC crime is committed, no notice is put up about a crime. What is so special about conversion that it should be put up for public information? The law says any aggrieved person or their relatives may lodge an FIR. Lokur says an aggrieved person is not defined, so anybody can say that he or she is aggrieved. The UP law defines allurement in a very broad sense. It includes offer of any temptation in the form of gifts, material benefits, employment, free education, better lifestyle, divine displeasure. Lokur says the definition of allurement is very vague or very broad. Taking a young lady or a young man out for dinner could amount to allurement. The law says that conversion is illegal, but reconversion to the immediate previous religion is not illegal. Lokur says this is introducing unique jurisprudence. If you go through a red light, it's an offense. But if you stop at a green light, your earlier offense gets wiped out. Very strange law, he says. The law has no provisions for appeal, which Justice Madan Lokur finds surprising. He says the law doesn't provide any appeal against any decision of the police, magistrate or family court. The person will have to go to the High Court. We also got a view from Justice Sasidharan Nambiar, a former judge of the Kerala High Court, who's actually heard similar matters in Kerala pertaining to so-called love jihad. He says, and this is his personal view, he says, that the ordinance will not survive the test of constitutional validity. He says the ordinance violates Article 21 of the Constitution, which guarantees personal liberty. Right of an individual to decide whether to marry or not and to choose the partner is his or her absolute right, so long as it's not unlawful and neither his or her parents or the state has no right to interfere. The right to privacy, as interpreted in the Puttaswamy case, entitles the individual to protect the right to choose the partner, as the family, marriage, procreation and sexual orientation are all integral to the dignity of the individual. Justice Nambiar says that the so-called love jihad is the creation of religious extremists for the purpose of dividing people. Okay, let's go straight across to the fourth and final judge who's joining us on the show. That's Justice Deepak Gupta. He's a former judge of the Supreme Court. Thank you so much, Justice Gupta, for patiently listening in to all the views of your brother judges. Let me just start by asking you the same question, whether you broadly agree with them that this ordinance does
No, I totally agree with them. This is
fail
a
the
totally
constitutional
flawed
test.
legislation.
Yes.
Absolutely unconstitutional and takes away the right of choice of every human being. But I'd like to divide this ordinance into two parts.
Okay.
See, one is the part where it deals with coercion, misrepresentation, fraud, etc. That part is already law as far back as 1977 in Reverend Stanislaus's case. The five-judge bench of the Supreme Court upheld the law framed by Madhya Pradesh with regard to forcible conversions.
Right.
But the problem in this law is, one, with regard to the definition of allurement, and secondly, making marriage, an inter-religious marriage, virtually an offense.
Right. That is.
So it is, in my view, just can't stand up to the provisions of Article 21, 25 and 14 of the Constitution.
Right. So you're making an important distinction. You're saying the part that deals with forcible conversions has already been addressed. It's nothing new. It was addressed as far back in the 70s. The worrying part is this part, which is attempting to basically criminalize conversion for marriage, or which is actually criminalizing marriage per se, that any conversion done for marriage becomes a criminal act.
And I think, in my view, the intention of the act is only that. As far as the rest of the laws, most states had these anti-conversion laws which have been upheld by the courts insofar as forcible conversions are concerned, insofar as fraudulent conversions are concerned.
Right.
But what do you mean by allurement? I mean, if a boyfriend takes his girlfriend out to a dinner in a five-star hotel, is that an allurement? And any marriage taking place after that, is with a fraudulent intent to convert.
Right.
And anyway, what business does the government have to deal with the personal beliefs of any human being?
Right.
Our Constitution guarantees every individual the right not only of freedom of religion, the right to have his or her own belief.
Right.
This belief can be it need not be a religious belief. You could be an atheist, you could be an agnostic, you could be anybody. But it's your right to believe. And equally important, the Constitution guarantees that each one has a right to change our beliefs.
Right. Justice Gupta, you in fact were telling me that earlier you had actually heard a similar matter.
Well, not exactly similar. There were two parts of it.
Yeah.
That mainly that did not deal with marriages at all. That was a Himachal law.
Right.
Which dealt with that, again, similar to the Madhya Pradesh law, which has been upheld by the Supreme Court. Being a judge of the High Court, I was bound by the Supreme Court judgment, though I had personally had some doubts with regard to the correctness of the same.
Right.
And now with this Puttaswamy judgment and all, I don't know, maybe things will change.
Okay. But yes,
there also the act and the rules made, there was no marriage in that act, but the act and the rules made it incumbent on a person changing his religion to give notice to the authorities. And therefore, I, sitting along with Justice Rajiv Sharma, we held that this is a person's belief. How can you tell him to disclose?
Right.
What is his belief? He may disclose it, he may not disclose it.
Right.
How can you force a person in any, I mean, you can't, we have come to the conclusion that even forms which say that you disclose your religion, why should you disclose your religion or your caste or anything?
But
it's not the government's job to decide
right.
what am I doing in my house, what religion I'm following.
Just, but the only question, Justice Gupta, is that, and you may have heard Justice A.P. Shah say this, that Justice Madan Lokur said that it will require a miracle to uphold its constitutional validity. But the concern A.P. Shah had that when it comes to the wider constitutional question, that in the cases like Hadia and so on, the Supreme Court may have taken a progressive view. But when it comes to the constitutional question, will they be as decisive?
I see no reason why the Supreme Court should not be decisive. They may, I mean, we all may have our own views on different subjects. Even some judges may not agree with what we are saying today. But I don't see why there should be any delay in a decision of this case. But right now the UP High Court is seized of the matter, and I'm sure the UP High Court itself will give a decision which will strike down the ordinance. I am confident about that.
Okay. The reason, of course, for the urgency being that this ordinance is already being used, as you must have seen, to harass and even arrest and disrupt a number of interfaith relationships.
I agree with you, but I will only say it is not being used, it's being misused. Because the law, even as it is being promulgated and if it's said to be legal, the cases I read are of marriages which took place many months before the law came into force.
Yes.
But it seems our police and our bureaucracy is more loyal than the king itself, and they just want to prove that something is going wrong. And what do we see images of? Images of a woman being harassed inside a police station, action being taken against the woman, but no action being taken against those 10, 12 so-called religious leaders who harass her inside the police station. I wish we lived in better times.
Well, that's strong words. You're right. You're actually referring to the Moradabad incident, and we are actually putting those visuals up on screen, where, just for the benefit of viewers who may not have caught up, that this is a Hindu-Muslim couple that claimed they converted 4 months before the ordinance was passed, and they got married 4 months before, but when they went to get their marriage registered, they were heckled and harassed by this Hindutva group, and the husband was arrested. The young woman who's pregnant was taken to a shelter home. Now it appears that the police have found that, in fact, they believe the story that it was a legitimate marriage, and they're likely to release the husband. So in conclusion, Justice, you are hopeful. You are hopeful of legal corrective.
I think there is no other option for any sound constitutional judge to do anything else but strike down this law.
All right. Okay. Well, amen to that. Let's see how it goes. Thank you so much indeed for joining us on Reality Check. And thank you so much for watching. We're completely out of time. Good night.